Scott Stisser here. Let's tie an olive scud. I'm going to start with TMC 200R size 14 hook and applying my Danville 6/0 pre-waxed cream thread. I'm going to wrap that back to where I'm going to tie in the feelers somewhere around between the point of the hook and the barb. And for the feelers, we're going to tie a small, very small clump of deer hair. I'm stacking these in hand because I don't want them all exactly lined up. That looks kind of actually artificial. It looks a little better with the points not quite so perfectly lined. So pinch these here and tie them in, wrapping back onto the butts of the hair. And we'll wrap back a little ways because this hair is going to help build some of the bulk that we want in the shape of our scud. And we'll clip these butts off now. And just smooth it out a little bit. Okay, and I'll wrap back down to right where the feelers were tied in. Exactly at that point. Now I built this jig. You can see I've added a weight on the back end of a pair of hackle pliers. I'm going to use this to hold on to my midge tubing, which is the next thing I'm going to tie in. This is going to allow me to have hands-free access to tying this fly as far as tying in the legs later. So I'm going to attach the tubing exactly at that point. If I was to do this video over, I would have attached it forward and wrapped back. It's just easier. As you can see, this is a little clumsy to try to wrap forward on this material, but we'll pull it off here. Okay. Yeah, now we'll clip that excess tubing off. I'm going to wrap all the way back to where we were before, where the tie-in point of that tubing. And I'm just going to move my Danville thread. You see how I moved it back out of my way for the time being. I'm going to attach some heavy thread that I can flatten. This is a UTC, I believe it's a 200 denier thread. It's white. Cream will be fine. Actually, whatever color you want to be on it as a base color underneath this, but for this fly, this is how I do it. And this is just because I don't want to spend all day freaking wrapping thread to build a body. I want to get some bulk on here pretty quickly to build the taper that I want to make it look like a scud body. So you see I'm counter wrapping the thread, spinning the thread there every once in a while to flatten it out. As you turn the thread, it'll build up a twist, get very ropey. Okay, so now I've built the body that I want pretty much. That's the shape I want, so I'll go ahead and whip finish this just so it won't come loose, and then I'll get the heavy thread out of my way. Now I'm going to wrap my other thread forward a few wraps just to the middle of the body or so, just getting it out of my way for this next step. I'm going to make 3 or 4 wraps with my tubing at this point. Okay, remember that weight's down there holding this, so this is the cool part. You should have seen me trying to tie this fly when I used to tie it without the weight. I wish I had a third hand. Alright, so at this point now, I've made some eyeballs. The eyeballs are made out of 0x tippet. So I'm moving my thread back there, and I'm going to put an eyeball on each side here. And I've flattened the monofilament close to the eyeball itself so that it won't build too much bulk and will sit in there nice and tight. Okay, and it's not really critical the placement right now. The eyeballs, you can make them stick out a ways. I'll do that on this side because you're going to pull them into place Here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and give them a couple wraps so they're not tight, but and I can still move them. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll pull them. I want them to be really tight up against that midge tubing at that point. I want them just sticking out between that and the next turn. Okay, and now I'll go ahead and securely fasten them and move backwards, adding some bulk in that section of the fly where I want it. And now I'll clip those excess monofilament tags from the eyes off. And I'm going to go ahead and continue wrapping forward, finalizing body shape, fixing anything that wasn't quite nice along the way. And now I'm going to go ahead and whip finish this thread for the time being and get it out of my way. So I have no thread hanging anywhere during the next section of the fly time. I'm going to make one more turn, maybe two, I lied. Okay, and I'm using my thumb and index finger to pinch those materials and pinch them really tightly against each other, that midge tubing one wrap after the next. On the legs now, I'm using a synthetic olive, kind of with some translucent stuff along fiber dubbing. I just roll it in my fingers to make a little rope out of it, small pieces. And I'm going to take the midge tubing in one hand and slide the legs up underneath on the bottom of the hook. Okay. And slide them up gently. Okay. Get it in there. Now I'm going to make another turn, pinching the front part in between, and then I'm going to make another couple turns, say one turn or two turns, so I don't want too many legs. And I'm going to continue this this process of adding another set of legs, capturing them, locking them in, putting one other extra turn, and securely tighten them. And you can see how hard this would be if I didn't have the freedom of having no thread in, didn't have that weight on the midge tubing to free up my hands to do this. Okay, so this is probably getting boring. We'll do one more. Again, a little rope of material, pulling it up and under on the bottom of the hook, lock it in place. Okay, fixing anything with my thumb and index finger to lock it in. Okay. Alright, now we've finished putting all the legs in. We're at the front of the fly again. I still have my tubing hanging down, still stretched out with a weight attached. And I'm going to go in here, and any little thing that's showing through, I have a marker that's pretty close to the same color as my tubing. I'll just go in there and any of that cream thread that's showing out. Sometimes I mark it before I even wrap the tubing, and now I can attach my Danville 6/0 thread again, and I want to capture, as I'm tying the thread in, I'm also capturing and locking in that midge tubing tightly so that I'll be able to clip it off and finish this fly. Alright, so let's get the tag of this thread out of our way and clip it off. Okay, and when I'm convinced I've securely got this tubing locked in place, I'm going to go ahead and clip it tightly, pulling on it, and then I'm going to go ahead and whip finish. Okay, we've whip finished the fly. All our tying portion is done. Since I use cream thread, I'll go ahead and mark this up now so that it matches the rest of the fly with that same marker. And just a touch on each side. That'll absorb into that thread. Okay. Next we're going to trim the legs, and I'd go to slight angle like the real thing, and I just leave it just shy of the hook point, just barely touching the hook point there. That makes for a good weed guard, if you will, those fibers in front of that hook point. And since scud tend to live in the weedy areas, that's not a bad thing to have. Alright, we'll turn the fly over for this part. We're using UV sensitive goo, about halfway. The viscosity is about between tack free and H2O, somewhere between those two. You notice the fly is upside down. That's because if the fly was right side up, that would work right into those legs and make them really, really stiff. This way, there's just a slight, as I'm doing this, I do it pretty quickly, and I let just a slight amount of capillary action that just before I put the light on it will now secure those legs in. That you notice that we're only tied in by one turn of the tubing, and this will really lock them in place if you looked really close. And yet you'll see that I have not allowed any of that to get into the fibers, so that they're not, that they ended up stiff. They're still just as they were when I put them on, so it's nice and soft. Alrighty, let's turn the fly over, take a peek. Here's the completed fly. I think it's a pretty good looking scud, and I've had success with it. I've seen some people tie a lot more complicated ones. Anyway, enjoy.